They fly all their equipment over there, all their limousines and everything have to fly on that thing,
Okay, so yesterday, what we learned at the end was why is it called, why according to Rabbi Yehuda is Mincha Soilus called the primary Mincha, the Chad Shem Menachos, is because it doesn't have a Shem Levi. And just for us to remember which one he was referring to, he said in the Brisa that it's the first one that you encounter when we learned the Parsha of Menachos. The next line in the Mishnah was, if he said mincha or minha mincha, he brings one mincha. Thank you very much. And if he says mincha, if he says minha minchais, then he brings two. So, boy, Rav Papa wants to know mine mincha mahu. So instead of the word mincha being plural, min minchais, he said mine mincha. So the word mine is plural, but the word mincha was singular. What would that be mechayifim? Mahu. Do you say kivin damer mine tarti ka amar? He means that he wants to bring two menachas. Umay mincha. Why is mincha lashon yachid? The kula menacha is nami mincha mikaryan. You find that the Torah refers to the whole group of menachas in singular form. And of course, there's many more than just one mincha. Oy dilma, or maybe kivin damer mincha chada mincha ka amar. Or maybe since the word mincha he didn't pluralize, he only means to be mechayiv himself with one mincha. Umay mine mincha. So why did he say mine? Why did he pluralize the mine if he really only means one? Hachika amar. This is what he means to say. Mi mine mincha. From the many different options I have to bring a mincha, chada mincha alai. I want to bring one of those menachos. Tashma, let's see if we could bring our raya to our shaila. It says in the Brisa, mincha, or it says in the Mishnah, mincha or min mincha, yavi achas. So we could be medayik. Ha mine mincha, ishtayim. Zakt gemor emesefa. Menachos, min menachos yavi ishtayim. Ha mine mincha chada. Ela meha lekal mashma mina. From the Reisha you have a diak in one direction. From a seifa you have a diak in the other direction. Therefore, you cannot make a diak at all. Tashma, let's try another raya. Min menachos salai. If someone says min menachos salai, yavi shtei menachos, like our Mishnah says. What if he says yavi shtei menachos mi min echad? He has to bring two of the same type of mincha, two machvas, two marcheshes. Ha, let's be medayik from this price. Ha mi minei mincha. If he said minei mincha, means he only pluralized the minei, it's only chada. So therefore, when we want to bring a raya, then it's only one. So you don't have a raya. Dilma ha minei mincha, maybe shtei menachos mishtei minin. Maybe what it means is if he says minei mincha, you bring two menachos, but since he used the plural minei, he can't bring two machvas, two marcheshes. It's one machvas or one marcheshes, two different types of mincha. Unfortunately, we have a brisa that tells us that would not be the case. Why? Because the brisa says min minachos alai, maybe shtei menachos mi min echad, minei minachos alai. Then it's maybe shtei menachos mishtei minin. But haminei mincha, you only bring chada. So you have a raya that you only bring one mincha when you pluralize the minei. Zok to Gemara, that's not a raya because Dilma Hamani Rab Shimon he. Maybe the brisa where you were medayik from the brisa that minei mincha means that you bring one mincha. Maybe that's going according to Rab Shimon. Who is Rab Shimon? We learned about him before. Damar mechza chalois umechza rikikin yavi. We know that there are the following menachos available to be brought: machvas, marcheshes, mafetaner chalois, and mafetaner rikikin. Right? But Rab Shimon held that it's not one or the other. You could also bring a mafetaner that's a combination of some chalois and some rikikin. So that opens up the option to many possibilities. Because if I meant mafetaner, what did I mean? Did I mean 10 rikikin? Did I mean 10 chalois? Or maybe I meant 9 rikikin and 1 chala. or maybe 8 Rekikin and 2 Chalas, or maybe 7 Rekikin and 3 Chalas. So there's so many more options that I could have chosen from. So maybe this brisa that says Minei Mincha, meaning you bring 2 minim from 2 menachos, because that was the dik that we made. Let's try again. Ha minei mincha chada dilma. So maybe we want to say maybe you bring 2 menachos, but the Gemara brought a raya that from if you said minei mincha, you bring 1 mincha from you bring 1 mincha. I'm sorry, you bring ha minei mincha. You bring 1 mincha. That's right. You bring 1 mincha. Maybe that's only according to Reb Shimon. The Omar mechzer chalois umechzer rekikin yavi. And therefore, there's so many more options. Umay minei mincha. What did he mean when he says minei mincha? He means mincha the isba trei minei, a mincha that has 2 min in it. There's only one type of mincha that within the single mincha itself there are 2 minim. It's only the minchas mafetaner, only according to Reb Shimon. So maybe this brisa from which we were medayik, that you bring 1 mincha, that only works out well according to Reb Shimon, because you could use the word minei in 1 mincha, because the 1 mincha could be comprised of 2 different types of breads, rikikin and chalos. So maybe yes, you do have a raya from this brisa that minei mincha you only bring 1. But who said that the Rabbanan would hold like that? Maybe only Reb Shimon would hold that minei mincha, because you can actually very nicely fartaich what he meant. Minei mincha. What type of mincha am I bringing? A minei, a mincha that comprises of different types of breads. Aval Rabbanan, but we pass like to Rabbanan, who you either have to bring all chalos or all rikikin. So therefore, the word minei mincha couldn't be translated as a mincha from that you bring from 2 different types of breads. Aval Rabbanan, the Amri mechzer chalos umechzer rikikin lo yavi. But according to Rabbanan, where you don't have that option, there maybe it does mean maybe shtei menachos mishnei min. So once again, we don't have a raya, because this raya that you brought might only be according to Reb Shimon. We want to know according to Rabbanan, and according to Rabbanan, the translation of Minei Mincha is still up in the air. Okay, gewaldig. Pirashti, ve'eni idea ma pirashti yavei chameshtan. Oh, so by the way, yesterday we talked about that formula. If it's 1 through 60, 1, 2, 3, 4. It works out to 1830.
You know that formula.
Well, actually, I could.
Tosfos,
I learned it once.
but Tosfos on Kufaf Amud Aleph tells us where the formula comes from. Very, very simple. If you have,
I derived it last night. I was thinking because I forgot how to derive it.
Tosfos makes that explanation. Tosfos is very, very simple. There's 30 matches that you could pair up. 60 with 1 is how much? 61. 59 with 2, 61.
Yeah.
58 with 3, 61. There's 30 pairs that all add up to 61.
60 pairs.
No, there's 30 pairs.
You end up going.
Yeah,
That's
you can
exactly
each
the
one. Right. So if you bought there's 30 pairs of numbers that add up to 61, you take 60, divide it by 2, which is 30,
Yeah.
30 pairs, and you multiply by 61. And that works for any
So
number.
Tosfos knows the form. It figured out the form.
Tosfos broke down the
So wait a
formula.
minute. You know what?
We'll see it when we look.
Tosfos should be getting credit because they gave this formula. They gave a title to a person who derived it like a few hundred years ago.
If you could figure out this formula on the test,
Years ago.
you get extra credit. You know why? Because you get Tosfos credit. You get extra credit.
What I mean,
Sure.
it should be named after Tosfos. They figured it out.
I want to tell you,
earlier.
Tosfos probably is much prouder of his other achievements,
I'm
other than his
sure.
mathematical acumen.
I'm sure.
Dr. Gemara, Pirashti, that would be geschmack if you're in English class and Mr. Spencer, not Mr. Spencer, Mr. Face, Mr. Brady, or he was English, or what was his name, Mr. Brady, Mr. Becker. Mr. Becker says, oh, that's Johnson's theory. No, it's not, it's Tosfos. What's that? Dr. Gemara, Pirashti, ve'en yudeh ma Pirashti, yavi chameshtan. You have to bring all 5 types, right? Let's go look at Lost Mishnah inside. This is not when he didn't know how many Yisroinos he was mefarish. It's when he didn't mefarish how many minim he did. So let's have a look. Min menachos yavi shtayim pirashti. How many minim I want? Then you there ezem and pirashi, but I didn't I don't remember which specific type of mincha I obliged myself to bring. Yavi Chamish, you have to bring all five. What are the five possibilities that it could have been? It could have been a machvas. It could have been a marcheshes. It could have been a mincha soilis. It could have been a mafei tanner of chalois, and it could have been a mafei tanner of rakikin, right? But that's only according to the Rabbanan. According to Reb Shimon, there are so many more possibilities because he holds mafei tanner is not either matzos or rakikin; it's any combination of matzos and rakikin. So if you add it up, it would add another 10 combinations. So there would be 11 combinations total of the Michas Mafei Tanner. So Zogt the Heilige Gemara. This is not consistent with Rab Shimon. The year Rab Shimon kivin the Amar Mechta Chalus Mechta Rakikin Yovi, since he also, you could bring it halfway, it doesn't really mean half. It means any combination of matzos and rakikin. Inami savala Rabbi Yehuda. Even if he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that there's only 10 breads brought as part of a mincha, the makal menachos bois eser ikal svuke ba'arba esrei menachos. It could be 14. How could it be 14? Because you have the machvas, you have the marcheshes, you have the soilas, and then you have 11 possibilities of combinations with the minchas mafei tanner. 11 plus 3 is 14. According to Reb Meir, which Rashi speaks out because the worst is according to Reb Meir, you actually need 12 chalois. If you need 12 chalois, that means it's not 11 extra, it's an extra 13 because there's an extra 2 chalos involved. It's not only 9 and 1, it could be 12, it could be 11 and 1, and then 10 and 2 because there's 2 more chalos to play with. So there's more variations. Abai Amar Nah, Filu Tamer Rab Shimon. Even if you hold like Rab Shimon, you wouldn't have to bring 14 menachos because there's a way that you could fulfill all the different options by just bringing 10 rikikin and 10 chalois. Because Rab Shimon said, the field tamer Rab Shimon, Shamini le Rab Shimon damar maisi umasni. Meaning, you bring 10 chalois and 10 rikikin, and you say, if I meant all 10 chalois, then I have my 10 chalois here, and the 10 rikikin will be in the dava. If I meant 10 rikikin, then I have a 10 rikikin here, and the 10 chalosh in the dava. If I meant 9 and 1, so 9 from this, 1 from this should be my mincha, and then the remaining 9 and the remaining 1 should be the dava. The Tanya, we learned a precedent to Rab Shimon holds that you can make these type of Tnaim. Rab Shimon Omer lamachers mevi ashamay v'lugay. Now this is referring to a complex case where the Gemara discusses an unusual set of occurrences that could lead to a very long delay for someone becoming tahar. So Rashi just tells us the very basics and says when you learn that sugya, you'll get into the details. But Tosfos is a slow news day. So Tosfos decided to go through the entire details of that sugya. And I'm going to say about that for now, ayin sham. That's beyond the scope of today's daf. So let's just learn a little Rashi. B'taisefta the Naziris katani law. If someone had the following problems, he was for sure a Nazir, but he was a Safik Nazir Tamei Safik Tahar. He wasn't sure if he became Tamei or not. And to compound his problems, it was a Safik Mitzari Muchlit Tamei Safik Tahar. He became a Mitzari, and the question is he still a Mitzari or is he Tahar? So in his life, there's a lot of different possibilities of the Seder of how he becomes Tahar. So the halacha is he'd have to wait 60 days to be able to catch him. Again, we don't have to go through all the details, but the problem is at the end you got to bring karbanos. He doesn't know if he's a mitzvah, he doesn't know if he's a nazir. So there's so many different options for karbanos. So what do? So he says, maybe ashamai veluga imai. You bring the asham and the loy shemen, which is normally what the mitzvah brings. And he says as follows: if I am actually a mitzayra, and therefore I need to use karbanos to be my asham mitzayra, so this is the asham and the like shaman required. But v'mlav asham ze yehei shalman yidava. Then this animal shouldn't be an asham; it should be a shlamim. What's the primary difference between an asham and a shlamim? There's two primary differences. One is the asham is eaten only by kahanim; the shlamim is eaten by everybody. But more relevant is the asham could only be eaten for 1 day and a night, while the shlamim could be eaten for 2 days and a night. So here you have a suffix. So it's either an asham or a shlamim. The asham needs to be treated l'chumra of the shlamim and l'chumra of the asham because we don't know what it is. It's brought in the Tnai. Ton shchita b'tzafain like an asham because a shlomim does not need shchita b'tzafain. Umatan b'hainos, which is what the mitzvah requires if it's a mitzvah. But just in case he's not really a mitzvah and this is just being a shlomim, then he needs usmicha unesachim utenufas chazav v'shoik like a shlomim. But the nechal lezichrei kahuna, it could only be eaten by kohanim because maybe it's an asham. Liyoim v'layla, but it could also only be eaten for a day and a night because maybe it's an asham. The afal gav. Now, very interesting. It's a very interesting note over here from the Shita Mukubetzes. The afal gav the ka'amar mar. That's not the interesting part. The interesting part is the Shita is telling us that what we're about to read is not the Gemara. It's not I'm writing. It's the Rabbanon Tzavaroi, which were, I guess, Rabbanon that were right after the Amiroyim before the Goinim. Mitevas v'afal gav ad tevas omar lei Rav Papa zeu me Rabbanon Tzavaroi. Did you ever hear of Rabbanon Tzavaroi? That the only reason why I even know there's something like that in existence is because when I was in Camp Kotor one year, the bunks were named after Avos and Sanhedrin and there was a bunk that was Rabbanon Tzavaroi. So that's how I know B'Chalal that there's such a thing, and probably that's why they made the bunks because I know Torah because how they set up the bunks. So V'Yafal Gav, and they were actually the best bunk in the leagues. So you heard their name mentioned a lot. The Aval Gav de Ka'amar, I'm just going to read from the Shita. Aval Gav de Ka'amar Mar. Amar de Amar Rab Shimon, Maisiu Matni Lechatchila. When does Rab Shimon allow you to Lechatchila bring a carbon on a Tnai? Lechatchila, you don't have any carbon on this. You go out and you buy a carbon Lechatchila and you make such an interesting Tnai. We would normally not allow you to do that. We only allow you to do that, l'chatchila, is because it's l'tekune gavra. It's because otherwise this person is messed up. He'll never be able to coach him because he has all these sveikas on him. He wouldn't be able to fix it without this process. Avo ba'alma, but what if you just wanted to bring a carbon al Tnai? Avada, you wouldn't be able to. The yavid in l'chatchila loy. You would only, if you had two carbonos that got mixed up, so then you could make these tnoim. But the l'chatchila to set something up wouldn't be allowed. Why wouldn't it be allowed? We're going to see in a minute. Because you're never allowed to bring a carbon leveis absul. You're never allowed to bring a carbon and limit its ma'achila to less than it would have been allowed to eat. Shlomim you can eat for 2 days and 1 night. Osham you can only eat for 1 day and 1 night. So you're never allowed to create lechatchila a carbon that's safek shlomim, safek osham. Because in the side that it's a shlomim, you're reducing the amount of time it's allowed to be eaten. But you only can do it lechatchila because you're stuck. You got to save this guy. But normally you wouldn't be able to do it. So you might say, so how could I do it with these menachos? How could the make a minchal tonight? Because hanamili gabi shlomim. The only reason why Reb Shimon is hesitant to allow a carbon al tonight is the kamamayit bachilasa, the havalahu kochim leveis absul. Because on the side that it's a shlomim, you're limiting the amount of time that you're allowed to eat it. Aval menachos afilu lechatchila, because all menachos have the same as manachila. It's all 1 day and not afterwards. So therefore, there's never a concern about bringing a mincha atnai. So since Reb Shimon knows you can bring a mincha atnai, going back to what we said on the Manalef, therefore, even according to Reb Shimon, who holds you could bring mechza chalos or mechza rekikin, you still don't have to bring 14, because if you could bring chalos and you could bring rekikin, then you can bring them all on a tnai. Okay, now we have another problem. It still wouldn't work. Amar le Rav Papa l'Abaye. For Rav Papa l'Abaye, it still would not work out according to Reb Shimon to do this. I'm sorry. Where's my pach? Over here. Ula Reb Shimon. He just sticks in of Ula Reb Shimon the Amar mechta chalos or mechta rekikin yavi. So what are you suggesting? If he said I was mechayves of 1 min of mincha, and I'm not sure what, so what would he have to bring? He'd have to bring a minchas soilas. He would have to bring a minchas machvas, a minchas marcheshes, and then he would have to bring 2 menachos, just like according to Rabbanon, 10 breads of chalos and 10 breads of rakikin. Right? That's what we're saying now. And out of the 10 breads out of the 20 breads that he brings, he makes a tnai so that whatever variation he might have been mechayiv himself with between the 20 breads, he'll have those that he needs of the dava, and he'll have those that he needs to first chayva. The problem is, how could you do that? He's bringing 2 separate menachos. He obliged himself to bring 1 mincha. We don't know what that mincha is comprised of. So you're telling him to bring two separate menachos and you're going to mix and match, you can't mix and match with two different kabbalas. He has to bring one mincha with the right combination. He can't bring two menachos and say mix and match from the two menachos. One's prepared in one bowl, one's prepared in another bowl. You can't mix and match the chalos. So for example, Reb Shimon the Amar mechza chalos the mechza rekikin yavi hakamaisi yisar nechad mishnei yisarin v'loy echad mishnei loygin. You have two loygin. He said he's going to bring one mincha. Now he has two loygin and two sets of breads, right? How is that fulfilling the one mincha that he was mechayev himself? He's combining two separate menachos. That won't work. Zok to Gemara, actually, according to Reb Shimon, it would work. Because Shamin and Leila Reb Shimon, the Amar, Shamin Leila Reb Shimon, the Amar Emhevi Isar Nechad Mishnei Esroinois, V'loy Echad Mishnei Login Yotza. He happens to hold that works. So Reb Shimon holds it would work. Reb Shimon is a carpenter, you're going to see, because everything would work. So, because the Gemara asks again, umikmitz heichi komets. Okay, so you Reb Shimon allows you to tap into one mincha out of two different menachos. So that's why the whole mincha will say will be good. But how in the world are you going to make a kmitza? You have to make one kmitza from these 10 and one kmitza from those 10. The mikmitz heichi komets. How are you going to make the kmitza? How is it possible that you're going to make a kmitza that's going to have in the kmitza the representation of what you said, the ratio that you said, 3 to 7 or 4 to 6? You're going to make one kmitza that's fully chalos and one kmitza that's fully matzos, fully rekikin. You're not going to have the combination of kmitza of what you actually oblige yourself to bring. So tomorrow, yeah, it's not a problem. The masniva omar. He makes two kmitzas, one from the chalos and one from the rekikin. And he says the following, I chalos lechudayu, urekikin lechudayu, amri, if what I said, either only chalos or only rekikin, no problem. The kamitzka mechalos lahavei chalos, the kamitzka rekikin lahavei rekikin. The kmitzah that I made from the chalos should be exclusively for the chalos. The kmitza that I made for the rekikin should be strictly for the rekikin. Whichever one was my chiyuv is chiyuv. Whichever one was my nadav is nadava, and we're happy. But what about if my chiyuv was half and half? Amri. So you know what I could do? Out of the two kmitzas that I make, I can say the kakamitzta mechalois lahava amechza chalois. I made a kmitza of only chalois. That should, let's say it's 5 and 5 that my nether was. Half of this kmitza should be going for my chiyuv. And the other half should go for the rekikin. So I'm making two separate kmitzas, and I'm saying that the composition of the kmitzas should apply according to the ratio of how I was noitiv. But it's two separate kmitzas.
How could you have a kmitza rekikin for chalas?
No, because if it was a mixture, like it was supposed to be, chalos and rekikin together. Let's say you had a mincha that was 6 chalos and there was 4 rekikin. So you bake them, you grind them up, you make them into a mush, and you make a kmitza. That kmitza is exactly that, partly rekikin, partly chalos. That's what you're looking to do. So for the Gemara, how could you do that? You can't make a mincha needs one kmitza, not two kmitzas that you can combine from. Zok Gemara, you forgot. Reb Shimon's a carpenter. He says it would work. Zok Gemara. You need one kaimitz from chalosh or rekikin. The kaimitz from chalosh or rekikin and rekikin and chalosh. There's two different kamitzas that you're combining half a kamitza A and half a kamitza B to apply to some, and the other half to apply to the other. So Gemara, yes, Reb Shimon's a carpenter. Shmuel Reb Shimon the Amar im kamitz v'alav b'yodai me'echad al shneim. It will work. The Amar im kamitz v'alav b'yodai me'echad al shneim yotza. For Gemara, okay, so you've solved the kamitza, but there's still more problems because the halacha is. You had oil, and you had rekikin, and you had chalos. And we learned that there was a difference in the way you apply the oil to the rekikin and the way you apply the oil to the chalos. What absorbs more oil? The chalos. It's soft bread, it will absorb oil. So the halach is you mix in half the oil into the chalos, and the other half for the matzahs, you can't soak it in, so you just smear it a little bit. And the leftover you put back into the chalos. That's how you apply the oil. How are you going to do that over here? The if it's half chalos, half rekikin, Amar, we said that moisher shemen machzir lechalos. the rest of the oil that you couldn't get absorbed into the matzahs, you just dump back into the chalais. And ikula rakikin, and if it was all rakikin, Amar Moiser Hashem and Nechal Kahanim. If it's all rakikin, they can't possibly absorb all the oil. So what happens to that oil? It goes to the kahanim. So here, what do you do with the oil? Do you put it here? Do you put it there? You don't know, because we don't know what type of mincha you made over here. Zok Gemara, Reb Shimon ben Yehuda. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda was also a carpenter. He also said you can do it. It would work. The Tanya Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, I remember Reb Shimon, Moishchan Kemin Ki. He held no matter what type of mincha it was, or kik and chalois, you never absorbed all the oil in. All you did was you smeared it, which means you would equally treat the rikikin as you would the chalois, which you could do here as well, and all the rest of the oil goes to the kahanim. So according to Davka Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, there won't be a problem as to how to process the oil. Amalei Rav Kahana Rav Ashi. Now we finished with the suffix of it's if it's a minchas mafetaner, where the Gemara just solved the problem. According to Reb Shimon, you don't really need 14. You can just bring the same 5 as according to the Rabbanan. But according to everybody, there's another possibility. If he said I'm going to bring a mincha and he didn't say what type, why are you limiting it to 5 types? Maybe he meant a 6th type. What's the 6th type of mincha? The minchas nesachim. Right, we looked yesterday. The minchas nesachim is similar to minchas soilas, but not quite. It needs wine. It needs more oil than a minchas soilas. So maybe that's what he meant. But minchas nesachim. Zok the Gemara. The case was where he said, "I'm confused. I don't know what I was machayev myself, but I'm sure that I wasn't machayev myself with a minchas nesachim." How could he be so sure if he's confused? Because there's many distinctions that he's sure about that he was not mechayev himself. The Yom Rava, the kasha is according to Rava. We learned misnadev adam minchas nesachim b'chol yom. Right, we learned it yesterday. Right, with Vibalta is a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Tarfon in the Mishnah, whether or not you can donate shemen by itself. Vayzchas kula al mamoida a minchas nesachim by itself, you could be mechayev yourself. Right, even though it's not one of the 5 listed minchas nedavar. Right, that's what we learned yesterday. So maybe it's that. Maybe that's what he's talking about when he said, "I was a mechayev myself a mincha." Maybe it's a minchas soilas that he. Maybe it's a minchas nesachim that he meant. Zok Gemara, no, because he says as follows: Kikam istapkalei. He's only unsure of ba beglal yochid, a mincha that normally is brought on behalf of a yochid. Minchas nesachim is comes from a korban tzibur. Ba beglal tzibur loy mistapkalei. He's not. I never thought of that. I know for sure I wasn't thinking of a different type of mincha that can service a tzibur. Or kika mistafkalei, I knew that I'm unsure about a ba beglal atzma. I knew I made a mincha, but a mincha that's a standalone korban. But ba beglal zevach, the type of mincha that would normally accompany a zevach, lo mistafkalei. I'm sure that's what I wasn't thinking, because that's distinctly different. And if a zoyvite, I'm assuming what I was machayev myself, but it for sure wasn't that type. That's way different. Or kika mistafkalei to una lavoina. But the minchas nesachim does not require levina. Loy mistapkalei. That I wasn't even considering. Kika mistapkalei ba beloik, where you only bring 1 loig of oil, which is a standard mincha. Ba b'shloi shloigin, which is the minchas nesachim. Loy mistapkalei. Or kika mistapkalei to una kmitza. A regular mincha needs kmitza, but the minchas nesachim, the whole thing gets put on the mizbeach. Sheni to una kmitza loy mistapkalei. So I know that I was only considering one of the 5 standard menachos. I know I wasn't considering the minchas nesachim, and that's why we don't need to consider that option as well, because it's speaking where the person himself expressed that that's definitely not one of the menachos that I had considered bringing. So if someone asked you a trivia question, yesterday I was struggling to understand what is the difference between the minchas soilas and the minchas nesachim. They're both not baked. I didn't know the difference. Last night, when I was learning, I opened up a chumash to try to. I couldn't tell the differences, but this Gemara spells it out for us. There's like 5 differences. Difference number 1 is ba beglal yochid, not beglal tzibur. So that's not really a difference with the process. That's a difference in how it's made. So if we want to look at the difference in how it's processed, we could look at the following: the minchas nesachim does not require levina, yet the minchas soilas needs levina. The minchas nesachim needs 3 loigin, while the minchas soilas needs only 1 loig, and the minchas nesachim does not require a kmitza, but the Minchas Soilus does require Kmitza. So we know there's three fundamental differences between the Minchas Nesachim and the standard Minchas Soilus. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll be back tomorrow.